When No Rest for the Wicked was first revealed at the Game Awards last year, it was no surprise that its painterly art style was a big topic of discussion. It was the most striking trailer of the show. So, when we sat down with two of the developers from Moon Studios to discuss No Rest for the Wicked for this month's IGN First, we naturally had to spend some time talking about how such a beautiful art direction was found.
This is almost like our DNA. That's the trademark of Moon, is that we want our games to look timeless. We want them to look like a painting that is animated and is moving and is dimensional and is responsive and juicy.
That timeless look has been achieved through a combination of artistic talent and a smart use of technology. But Moon's mantra when it comes to technology isn't to aim for higher visual metrics than that used in other RPGs. In fact, the studio isn't overly focused on the buzzwords we so often hear used in conversations about graphics.
I think it's always about art direction and art style more than just ray tracing and polygons and that kind of thing, right? And we definitely make a certain conscious choice always, right, to kind of like go against the trend, because the trend right now is doing physical based rendering and all of this stuff, right? My problem is that a lot of these games that do that kind of like start looking the same. If I look at a lot of games that impressed me 10 years ago, that were like, oh my god, this game looks amazing. Nowadays, because the technology has evolved, not so much, right? But if I go into a museum and I look at these paintings that are literally 500 years old, right? I still think, oh my god, that looks amazing, right? And that's kind of like the path that we're going down. I think our games will always look like paintings come to life as much as we can do that, right? Simply because we like the timeless quality and we like the artistic touch that gives our games.
The most difficult thing is that there is no handbook for this. With the way we approach it, it really doesn't matter what the physics is if the end result is boring, if the end result is not exciting. Because physics doesn't matter, it's what people feel when they play that matters. So I think the big challenge was to find something that works in 3D, that works with all of these 3D pipelines, but that still gives you this really direct artistic control and allows our artists to really create something that feels like a painting, as opposed to, more of this, ray traced or normal mapped kind of, 3D look.
The rules and principles behind the art style makes No Rest for the Wicked look striking, but it's the characters, creatures and world that will make it memorable. To achieve that, Moon Studios has tried to craft a fantasy setting that feels believable and relatable, while also being fresh and unusual.
I think we just have really talented artists, and especially our concept artist, Mikhail. The way he envisions those creatures and those nightmares that we all have seeing those, it's just brilliant.
We don't want our games to look like stuff that you've seen before. So obviously we take inspiration from historical stuff and so on, right? We look at armor designs, like crazy stuff that was done hundreds of years ago, but then we always try to give it our own touch.
I think it goes back to world building, right? Like it's exciting to build a world that people have never seen before, right? That we have never seen before, and kind of go through that creative process of exploring and imagining it and seeing what it can be, and then every step of the way build it and shape it.
We're lucky enough that we work in a studio every day. You wake up and you see art that is like, holy shit, that's great, that's really cool.
Part of Moon Studios' approach to creating this exciting new world is strict attention to detail. Much like a painted portrait, each frame of No Rest for the Wicked is meticulously crafted, filled with small flourishes and carefully placed elements.
The interesting thing is that despite it not being photorealistic, we do like detail. We didn't go for this, more simplistic cel-shaded look. You will see a lot of detail in the reflection and the specular, in the way the materials react, because we did want this game to feel immersive.
By rendering all that detail with a Caravaggio-inspired art direction, Moon hopes to achieve a timeless visual style for the second time.
A lot of people would say that Ori 1 still feels and looks great to play, and it's like 8-9 years later. So we hope the same thing happens with No Rest for the Wicked once we go through more of these iterations and we really, really dial everything in.
I think it's very interesting how people react now to games like Zelda Wind Waker or something, right? Like here's cell shading, and even 20 years after, right, it still looks pretty good. I think that is really interesting, right? As technology evolves, right, and we could potentially do photorealism, I still hope there's going to be a part of the industry that does not just do that, right? That actually also just make sure that here's this really unique looking game that looks unlike anything else in the market.
To see more of No Rest for the Wicked's beautiful art in motion, tune in to Wicked Inside at 9 AM PT on March 1st. And be sure to take a look at our videos that take an in-depth look at the creation of No Rest for the Wicked and its combat systems. And for everything else, stick with IGN.